Epic Gaming Night is sponsored by Analog Gamer. Check out Analog Gamer for high-quality board game apparel. You can find Epic Gaming Night shirts and much more at analoggamer.com. This is Epic Gaming Night, a podcast about board games and the stories and relationships they create. Welcome to the Epic Gaming Night podcast, a podcast about tabletop games, but mostly board games. I'm your host, Roy Canning, and with me, as always, is Matt.
Hello.
And Rob's not with us today because, you know, family things and Post Gencon. It's a lot of games going on.
But in honor of Rob, I'll say hello.
There you go. You can just pretend to be Rob the whole time.
Oh boy, that'll be bad.
Awesome. Well, we just got back from Gen Con 2016, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was pretty hardcore. Like, were you prepared, Matt, for the insanity of the exhibition hall?
I mean, honestly, the only thing that was like really strange to me was waiting in line on day one to try and get in line for the Fantasy Fight booth so that we could buy Rob a game.
And I still want to play that game. He was in an
Ashes tournament. So that was a bit crazy, but other than that, this is pretty much what I expected. There was nothing really crazy.
I love how Rob recruited everybody. Like, he had a bunch of events, but for some reason, like, they were planned like at the very beginning of the day for like each of these things. I mean, all day Friday, but like Thursday he had like a writing event because he's doing a lot of writing stuff with his book, so he had to go to that. But like he got like, Hector, you go over there, and Matt, you go over there, and like he was missing one game, and like on Friday, I got in early and was able to get him that game, so he got all the games he wanted. So now hopefully we'll get to play them soon.
Yeah.
So we got to play a few of them. It's pretty fun. But before we get into all of the Gen Con craziness, we're going to talk about some news from Gen Con, and oh my goodness, there's a ton of news from Gen Con. We can't even talk about it all. But
yeah. We're probably not going to talk about it all because eventually I think we'll try to get Rob back on and then have like a bigger, more in-depth sort of podcast where we go over games and news and things that excited everybody.
Yeah. We're going to try to do a Blitz episode where basically we did one of these last year right after we came back from Gen Con, and we just talked about all the new games that we had played at Gen Con and talked about their mechanics and basically our first impressions of the game. Not really an in-depth review, but like, hey, what we thought about this, what we thought about that, whatever. And last time we went through like a ton of games. So this year we're going to try to do the same with all three of us. So the first game that I want to talk about was announced at Gen Con at the in-flight report for Fantasy Flight is the Arkham Horror LCG. We've talked about this on the podcast before when it leaked. And we were wondering if it was actually like a real thing that was going to come out. But the Arkham Horror LCG is basically a cooperative living card game that I actually got to do the demo for, which is super exciting. And I'll talk a little bit more about like the mechanics and crazy things like that when we go on. But it looks like super exciting. It feels very Arkham Horror because like I know you've played Eldritch and you haven't played Arkham, Matt. But there's like lots of like skill checks, and you have your investigator going around to like different locations trying to do things. But yeah, the cool thing I like about it is the deck building in the game isn't like deck building, because like I have the Lord of the Rings LCG, and this is made by the same guys. And in that one, you have all these cards, and you try to build your deck sort of like to beat the scenario most of the time. Some of the scenarios are really difficult. In this one, it's more about the story as it plays out. And as you beat different levels, you'll get like experience that you can spend to upgrade your deck. So if you don't do good in the different missions, you're not going to be able to upgrade your deck as well. And it's going to be like super like small and incremental upgrades as opposed to just rebuild the whole thing. I was playing halflings and now I'm going to be playing like elves or dwarves, or like just changing out the entire deck with entirely different characters. You're just going to be playing the same character and building that character up. More like an adventure card game almost.
So, how does it work when is it like kind of like how like Pandemic Legacy has like consistency between like games, or is this just like you're building your deck like the entire time between like this one game that has like a scenario? Does that make sense?
There seems to be a lot of different stuff because there's like even choose your own adventure sort of elements. Like, I don't know how much of a spoiler this is, but like in the first scenario that I was playing in the demo, maybe it's just a demo scenario, but like at the end of it, there's all these monsters in your house or whatever, and you have a choice to like just run away from your house or to like just burn your house to the ground. And depending on what you do, depends on the next scenario you go to, and it kind of like follows along these like scenario lines as you're playing through. And they're going to be, it's a living card game, so they're going to be coming out with more and more scenarios to just continue to progress your character and get better upgrades and things like that as you go along. But you can't just build your deck however. That's the thing that I was excited about, because it's kind of hard, like with the Lord of the Rings game, to like keep up with what's good. And once you get to like the more powerful like quests and stuff like that, it's like, oh man, I gotta work really hard to build this deck just right to be able to beat this. I can't just play with whatever I think's cool. With this, it's gonna be like, I think sometimes you're just going to like lose the scenario and things are just going to happen, and you're just going to have to take the consequences of that sort of stuff. And it's actually a scenario play in between each game. So looks super cool. So that is the Arkham Horror Living Card Game. Matt, do you want to talk about this next one? I know you saw the miniatures and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's too much information out about it, but Eric Lang is coming out with a new game called Rising Sun. It's going to be another Cool Mini or Not game. It looks to be very similar to Blood Rage in that it's going to be, Cool Mini or Not. Eric Lang got a bunch of crazy, awesome looking miniatures. Probably going to be, I would imagine, some sort of area control thing, but I didn't get any of the information. I just saw the miniatures and then like kind of started licking the glass paneling, and I was like, that's really nice. But yeah, I mean, it looks really good. I'm super hyped for it because I, if you listen to the podcast and heard me and Rob go back and forth about Kickstarter exclusives, I'm real salty about missing all the Blood Rage mini exclusives. And so they're probably going to be doing a Kickstarter for Rising Sun. But the thing about Rising Sun that's a bit different than Blood Rage is it's still kind of set with like mythological characters and stuff like that, but it's set more in like feudal Japan. So we have a big chance to see all sorts of crazy cool like Japanese deities or mythical creatures, like Amaterasus or Kirins or Kappas or I don't know.
Dragons.
I'm excited. Yeah. I mean, that's I don't know. I'm excited for it. There's not a whole lot of information.
Yeah, I think the Kickstarter's not supposed to come out till like next year. I know they announced it at the Dice Tower live show that we went to, and Eric Lang, like when he was starting it, was like talking about how much he loved designing Blood Rage and loved getting into the Norse mythology for it. And this game, he's gonna like take that same approach with the mythology side of all the feudal Japan stuff. So
yeah, and I absolutely love all that stuff. So it's super cool. And if this does well, I think it'll be interesting to see if Eric Lang tries to do games that. Well, I think it'll first be interesting to see how it differs from Blood Rage.
Yeah.
And if he has more ideas for like mythological based games, I think it'll be cool to see where he goes with like next. Like, does he go to like Aztec or Maya mythologies or like Native American or like Inuit sort of? I don't know. This is gonna be really cool.
Yeah. I think it's awesome because he like straight up said this is like the successor to Blood Rage, and everybody's like, oh my gosh. I mean, that was like the key thing.
He like seemed really hype about it, so. It's good.
That guy's pretty hype about a lot of
everything.
Things.
Yeah.
So
he does a lot of things, so that's okay.
There's a lot to be hyped about there.
Yeah.
Well, this next one is a game that just came completely out of left field. I think it was like they announced it like Friday or maybe Thursday, like last week. It is the Star Wars Destiny collectible dice game from Fantasy Flight Games. And if you're thinking like me, I thought Fantasy Flight did LCGs because they despised collectible card games. What happened to all those speeches that they had at all their things about how collectible card games are of the devil, and that's why we have LCGs. So it's kind of interesting to see that, like, at their in-flight report, they're like, we're making a game for the collectible crowd because, you know, they deserve a game too. And we're just like, wait, what?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like just as soon as that was announced, you could hear the collective amount of people just go, "Oh, neat."
I will stay as far away from that as humanly possible.
Literally zero interest. Like I don't know how it was when you play tested it, but like I had zero interest to even like.
Yeah, I got to do the demo of it, and it was solid. It is exactly what you would expect for what it looks like, and I went into it like with like negative, like, oh my gosh, this is a collectible game. I really wanted it to be bad, like, but I played it and it was actually like pretty good. The dice look like they're like stickers almost, but they're actually like pictures that are like imprinted into the dice, and then there's like plastic coating over all of it. So like really solid, like chunky dice. It's nice, but basically it's just like head-to-head Star Wars character combat. So you're just rolling dice and dealing damage to each other. I mean, it feels like it doesn't feel like Magic, but it feels like that sort of game, and it's got turns just going back and forth real quick, almost very Ashes-like. So it's an interesting game, but I'm terrified of collectible. But if that's your thing, it definitely looks like it's targeted directly at the Dice Masters crowd. And from playing Dice Masters and then playing this game seems like it's more solid than Dice Masters. So it'll be interesting to see how that takes off. I just hope that I'm not a part of it.
There you
go. But yeah, this next one I know you got to see, Matt.
Yeah, Oh yeah, so sorry, I had to pull the email back up. So the next on the list, the Spectre Ops app. We went by the Plaid Hat booth and talked to Emerson for a bit, and he was showing off the application, the sort of companion app that goes along with Spectre Ops. It looks really good. So essentially not everything is fully implemented yet. He was saying that he's still got some more work to do on it, and he was hoping to get it out sometime, I think September. Hopefully I'm right in remembering that. If not, my bad. But he was going to try to get it out on the App Store for, I think, like $1 or $2, something relatively negligible. Since you already bought the game, no need to reinvest a whole lot into an application. But it looks really good. Like, the artwork is very streamlined, and it's designed entirely to help out the agent, I believe.
It looks solid. Like, it looks like it's going to help the agent out so much, because the agent will now be able to keep track of, like, where all the hunters are and, like, where their line of sight is, and like try to sneak around and figure out, like, how far their movement is going to be, like, for the next turn. So it's like, if I'm standing here, they will be able to get me, but if I'm standing here, like, nobody will be able to reach me next turn. Like, it'll step the game up for the agent hardcore. So it'll be interesting to see if, like, games swing more that way. I feel like the agent might need a little bit of help, because Rob played that game a ton, and then last time we played, we actually played Spectre Ops at Gen Con, and it wasn't. I mean, we got him in the corner. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting because there's a lot of neat things that the application takes, like, sort of out of the board game, and by it takes out, I don't mean it's, like, negative, but, like, it takes out the whole rolling dice to figure out where the data caches are, and it takes out the whole having to put down a pad and paper to figure out, you know, what your route movement was. It's all integrated into the app, so the agent just hangs out with a phone or an iPad or whatever and just kind of does his thing, and it shows him line of sight. It'll also auto-calculate things like, I know it has all the special abilities for all the agents and stuff. Or not the agents, but
you can pick
the
your
hunters.
Cards out on there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you get to pick your cards. Not, like he was saying, not everything was implemented. I know Blue Jays decoy wasn't implemented when I was looking at it, but it's still pretty cool. It'll, like, let you know that you're about to cross somebody's line of sight, and kind of help you, if you want to cross somebody's line of sight, navigate where you would like to
leave your marker at the end of it.
Yeah. It also auto does like the car calculations. So if somebody says, "Hey man, where are you at in relation to the car?" It just goes southwest, and like it's immediate, it's instantaneous. You don't have to be
Yeah.
like, "I think it's west." I don't, you know. So not that that's really hard to do anyway, but it just kind of streamlines everything and makes a game that typically only takes 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how the game goes, maybe go faster, and so you can
Yeah.
get more plays in, and it looks really really good.
I think the best part of it is that it'll allow you to like replay the game like after the game is done. So like when all
Yeah.
the hunters are like, "Where were you the whole time?" or "What were you doing?" You can just be like, "Click, click, click, click," and it'll just show everybody
Yeah.
like where things are, what happened. It basically like instant replay of the game and how things played out, which is one of the best things to talk about after the game's over. It's one of the fun things in those hidden movement games, like, "Oh my gosh, I was over in this corner and I was sitting still for a few turns because you guys were right on top of me, but you walked around the corner and I made a run for it." Like, it's gonna be awesome to see all that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. It looks really good. I asked Emerson. I don't know. He didn't tell me not to say anything about it, but I asked him because there's so much work done on it, and it looks like it's pretty much a complete game. I was asking him if he planned on trying to make it into like a full app game, so that you could potentially play Spectre Ops on your phone with people, kind of just over the internet somewhere else. And he said, if it sells well enough, or if it does well enough, or there's a good enough response, they'll definitely look into it. And that for me is really exciting because
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to like get out the board to play a game that is very very good. You can just kind of get on your phone and go, "Hey!"
And I feel like that game is so turn-based, you could just get a push notification when it's your turn and just
Oh,
take
yeah.
your turn and then just next person's turn. So,
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this next game you're actually going to have to talk about again, but I'll lead you to it since it's not in the normal notes.
Yeah.
Is
Oh.
Doom the board game?
Oh.
Fantasy Flight announced this like another one right before Gen Con. Right out of the blue, nobody knew it was coming, and it's based off of like the new video game, but it's also a remake of the original Dune board game, which is kind of the board game that started like this whole Descent, Imperial Assault type stuff. It's very much like those games, but the original Doom was the one that preceded those. And so, Matt, you actually got a chance to mess around with this. You don't have to go in depth, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not gonna go too in depth with it. I'll save it for the other episode we're doing. But I did get to demo it. It was a lot of fun. I haven't ever played Descent, so I don't really know how to compare it to that. But I have played
you did play
Imperial Assault.
yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I actually liked it a little bit better than Imperial Assault. It could be because the guy running the game wasn't Roy.
What is that supposed to mean?
I think it was when I played Imperial Assault, it was just like me and AJ, and we were like, yeah, this will be fine, great, yay. And then we were just like, oh, we're getting destroyed.
Dude, I was trying to
It
go
wasn't
easy
I know,
too.
I know. And see, that was the thing. It was like I noticed like during Imperial Assault, I was like, man, Roy could be just like wrecking us right now.
Yeah.
And you didn't. And it was I don't know. It might have just been that we had a higher player count when doing the demo.
Yeah.
So you felt like you had more sort of options and stuff. The other thing that was different than Imperial Assault is with the Doom game, you actually get to see where the spawn points are. So you know.
Oh, nice. That's good.
So you kind of know, okay, maybe I don't want to go here. You don't necessarily know what's going to spawn, but you do know that something's kind of coming from there.
In Imperial Assault, it's always like you open the door and a bunch of stormtroopers pop out of a pile of trash. It's like, what? Where did
You
they
open
come
the door
from?
and there's a like a rail gun set up at the opposite side, and it blows you to pieces. And you're like, great.
Good thing you did that at the
I mean,
very end of your action.
It's like I should have known that was coming, but oh well. But no, it was good. It was fun. I'll go into more specifics later whenever we get around to that podcast. But I had a good time with it. It's if you're a big fan of the game, like the Doom game, whether it be the new one that just recently came out or the old video games that came out ages ago, you should definitely have a good amount of fun with this. The detail in the minis and the way they set up a lot of stuff is very.
It looks like the video game, like the minis look like the stuff from the video game straight up.
Absolutely, and it's really neat because there's a lot of sort of tiny just things in the different cards and abilities and stuff like that are I don't know, they sort of pine for your nostalgia almost, where you're kind of sitting there and you're like, oh man, yeah, that I remember the chainsaw's like the best thing ever. And it's
But
like,
do they allow you to enable God mode?
No, not that I know of. The demo guy did joke that he said the BFG might be on the map somewhere. He doesn't know. No one told him, but it could be a secret somewhere just laying around. So I think there is potentially an opportunity for some like kind of weird, cheeky like computer crossovers, maybe. But that being said, probably not. It's just it's really neat all in all.
Blowing up the demons, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It was good.
Awesome. Well, this next game is another game from Fantasy Flight. Oh my gosh, did they announce a lot of games? This is the Rune Wars miniatures game. This is like super interesting to me because this is the first game that's like, oh, this is like a tabletop, like on the ground, like miniatures game directed basically like at like old Warhammer. It's like tray movement where you have like your squad movement where they're moving together in these little trays and you have your little units there. It uses very much like the templates from X-Wing sort of thing, but there's a little bit more flexibility in it than that. I actually got to do the demo of this or like watch the whole demo of it, so I have a pretty good grasp of the game. But it feels like Battlelore mixed with X-Wing mixed with Warhammer, because it pretty much looks like it's a Warhammer replacement because they discontinued Warhammer for Age of Sigmar and got rid of all the like tray movement with all the things. And now Fantasy Flight comes out with this game set in the Tyrnoth universe. It makes me kind of sad though because they didn't announce anything for Battlelore, and like I'm super invested in Battlelore, like have everything for it, and I was expecting there to be a Battlelore announcement, and they announced this game, which is basically the exact same genre with like miniatures that look almost the exact same. I'm like, can I just use my Battlelore minis? I got a ton of those. But yeah, this looks like an awesome game if you're into miniatures games. At the show they had like all these nicely painted miniatures like with awesome terrain tables, basically like you're used to seeing with like Games Workshop type stuff. But the minis aren't going to come pre-painted. You're going to have to paint them yourself, and it looks like they're trying to get into like that miniatures aspect of the hobby, encouraging people to paint miniatures and all that sort of stuff, which is super interesting. But they said they are not interested in getting into making their own paints because they're not interested in making chemicals. But they're working with Army Painter to get the right colors and stuff and making up little guides on how to paint them per how they look in their books and stuff like that. So that seems super interesting too. But yeah, Rune Wars miniatures game. It's a thing. Matt, do you want to read this next one, saying that you didn't believe it was true?
Yeah, so they're coming out with a couple of different Dead of Winter games, or games, kind of in quotations very loosely. One of them's an expansion called Dead of Winter Warring Colonies. The other one I had to double check because I wasn't sure if Roy had a stroke or not. But Dead of Winter Flick 'em Up is a thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The best thing, it has like a zombie tower where you put all these zombies in like this little tower, like almost like a dice tower, and you drop the zombies down onto like characters. Like, oh my gosh, there's a horde of zombies! Zombies come and like attack a character. It's like, what the crap? I have no clue how the game plays, but it definitely looks like crazy with like the Dead of Winter theme on these like little wooden meeples, like flicking stuff around to like blast people and different stuff like that. Looks super exciting.
Yeah.
And the Warring Colonies, I guess, is supposed to take Dead of Winter and make it so you can play it competitively against each other. I don't know a whole lot about it, but the artwork on the box looks really cool. It's got a whole bunch of people standing on like two different sides of a crossroad trying to like be mad at each other. It looks like people like from the first game and the second game attacking each other. Maybe they're completely different people, but just seems like it makes the game so you can play it competitively instead of cooperatively. Which I guess it was pretty competitive if someone was a betrayer already. So it'll be interesting to see how this changes the game up.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought I overheard Isaacson that the way you play it was like one group of people are going to be like the zombies and the other group might be the colony. It might be that they're two different colonies. I'm not sure. I think that was what I was overhearing, but I was also trying to pay attention to Rob explaining to me what was happening in the Ashes finale or the final. And he was like, "So these owls, they do this," and I was just like, Isaac's over there talking about something very interesting. This is fun."
Nice.
But I didn't want to like eavesdrop too much because I wasn't quite sure who he was talking to. If it was like like one of those industry peeps or whatever. But yeah, no, it should be very interesting. A lot of good crazy stuff coming up with the Dead of Winter IP in the near future, and probably farther out. You can expect to see a bunch of just Dead of Winter stuff because it's a good game, and they're gonna try to, especially now with the acquisition by Asmodee, they're probably gonna try to milk it for as much as they possibly can. So
Yeah.
get ready for Dead of Winter Catan and Dead of Winter.
That would be insane.
Actually, I tell you what, Dead of Winter Ticket to Ride would be. I would probably play that because it would be vaguely reminiscent to like Snowpiercer, where it's like post-apocalyptic world and everyone's on a train and you got to try to get the train to survive the whole route. I think that'd be neat, but that's a whole other thing. But I'd play that game if anybody's listening who has any control of that.
Straight up madness.
But yeah.
Awesome. And the last thing that we're going to talk about for news, even though there's so much more news for Gen Con, oh man, is that you know how they made an app for Descent, so you can play Descent as a cooperative game. They're actually going to be coming out with one for Imperial Assault as well, and it's not due out until 2017. But yeah, so next year. But they are working on it, so I'm super excited about that because I actually have Imperial Assault, and I was thinking about getting Descent because I'm like, oh my gosh, they have this app for it, so you can like play it solo, you can play it cooperatively. Sounds awesome. So I don't have to have that problem of being super mean to you guys.
Yeah.
The app can be mean to all of us, and then we can just get mad at it instead of getting mad at me. But
that was another thing about the Doom game that I probably should have mentioned. One of the guys asked if they were going to do an app for it, and they said they didn't have anything planned like for the release of the game. But given that are doing an app
for like
Imperial
all the other
Assault
style
and
games,
Descent, it's probably coming, but it's probably not one of their like preeminent focuses. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, oh my goodness. That was madness. I guess we'll talk about a couple games that we played at the convention. Seeing that we're done with the news now. So, do you want me to start, Matt?
Yeah, because I'm probably not going to go into too much of like the newish games, but we can definitely talk about some of the other crazy games we played.
I know what game I really want to talk about, and this is a game that we're invited, or Emerson was invited, and he drug us along with him to hang out and play some games with Dan King, because Dan King was looking for more people to play. What is it called? Captain Sonar?
Captain Sonar.
Captain Sonar is a real-time game, a real-time team game where each team is working to drive around a sub and also find the other team who's driving around a sub and blast them out of the water. But it's awesome like how the real-time works in this game. It seems like after we played it once, I feel like I could teach this game very easily. It doesn't seem like it's going to be like that complex. You really need 8 players to play it because there's 4 different roles on each side. But once you understand the game and how it works and all the real-time stuff, it seems like it would be easy to just be like, hey, this is what this role does, this is what that role does, this is what that role does. But it's super awesome. I was the captain on my side. Dan was the captain of the other ship. It was super awesome to meet Dan King, by the way. He's a board game reviewer. I don't know if you knew, Matt, but he reviews a bunch of board games and has a pretty good like YouTube following and stuff. So.
Yeah, no, I didn't know he was. Seemed like a genuinely nice guy.
Super nice guy.
Was very kind.
As we
like to yell at. I don't know who the radio man was, but he was giving him some flack after they lost us at one point. He was like, "Man, what happened?"
That's awesome. Emerson was our sonar guy, right? Is that what the role was called? So he was a sonar. Then Matt was what was your role called?
I was the guy who like primed all the weapons and all of our sonar ability. Yeah, like any ability I had, I was the guy who was just checking stuff off so that we could use it.
And basically, your job was just to check stuff off in the order that like we needed it most, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
It
we need
was
torpedoes. Do we need torpedoes again, or should we try to scan for where they are? Like, which do we need to do in which order?
yeah.
But yeah, and then Brandon from Analog Gamer was our like engineer guy who was trying to make our ship not blow up for all the actions we were taking.
Yeah, it's a really interesting system they have where like you play four individual roles, and so when it was described to me 2 weeks ago by Brandon when we were talking about games we were looking forward to, it kind of to me sounded like Artemis, which is
Yeah.
very similar, but you're playing typically either against like an application or something like that. Um, but the roles in that are sort of very independent because they're like app run. But this is not so much. Like every role is tied together very, very well and sort of kind of intricately for a very small game. It's
It
really
reminds
strange.
me a whole lot of Space Cadets Dice, Space Cadets Dice Duel, where you're flying around the ships and stuff. But that one's like rapid dice rolling and like it's very, very confusing and stressful. This one, it felt like, I mean, we were still trying to go fast. We weren't going like super fast. It felt like we were working together to try to solve the mystery of where our opponent actually was. And that was a lot more enjoyable to me. A lot of things were like a lot simpler and easier. It still had like the same feel as that game, but this game was very much like, okay, well, we're up here in this corner. I was trying to do certain movements so that Brandon could like erase like the stuff and not take damage. And then at one point we're just like, okay, we think they're down there. Let's try to chase them down. So it's really interesting because there's a dry erase board and the captain draws lines saying which direction they're going, and the captain has to say it out loud. And your opponent's sonar player is trying to draw on like transparency the same lines that you're saying. And then there's all these like islands and stuff and like rocks around in the water. So they're taking that transparency and being like, okay, well, he went these directions. You can't cross back across a line that you've already done. So like, okay, he went these directions. Where does this fit on the map? So he must have gone around a rock here. Well, it could fit here, but it couldn't fit here. So they're trying to narrow down the exact location of your sub just on the fact of you saying north, east, south,
Yeah.
south, west, north, and just them drawing like the little whatever squiggles you're making around the map. And each time you say one of those things, Matt has to say check, and check off a thing, and then the engineer has to say check and X off a like stuff in the engineering room. And if you do too much weird stuff in the engineering room, the ship will take damage if you're like doing stuff too fast. So it kind of like limits you. You can also surface, and if you surface, you erase all the damage type stuff that's in the engineering room. Or not damage, but all the stuff that's marked off in the engineering stuff. But then you have to take his board and like circle around the thing and initial, and each person has to go around and circle an initial, and then once you give it back, the other team has to see if it's all done correctly. And if it is, then you get to start moving again. But you can surface to get rid of your stuff in like your preemptive damage is probably about to be damaged, but to clear up your ship. But the other team has to make sure it's okay. And there was a point in the game where what time was it? It was like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning.
It was like 2:33.
I was super tired, and I'd gotten up super early. This was also when I had demoed all day in the convention hall and then gone in to the Secret Cabal meetup, and then we did this after the Secret Cabal meetup. So it was ridiculous. So I was super tired. They were drawing their things, and it got to me, and I started like erasing like what Brandon had done. I was like, and they're like, "What are you doing, man?" And I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing." And we're doing like a real time game. I'm like trying to fix things, and oh man, but we worked it out. And Emerson was like the most valuable player in that game because he's like, they're right here. And I'm like, what? I was like, where do you think they are? He's like, they're right here. He's like, fire a torpedo there. So I'd like get over there, and then he'd be like, fire the torpedo right there, and we would hit him dead on. And it's like, man, solid. Because I was just driving around in circles and trying to go wherever Emerson told me like they actually were. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on until you can hear what they're saying, north, south, west, east, all this different stuff. There's a lot of other cool stuff, like there's drones that you can send out, and you can ask them if they're in a certain section of the map. And then there's, what was the other one? A sonar thing?
Uh, yeah. So there's a sonar where you have to give out two bits of information. One has to be true, the other has to be false. So you'd be like, "I'm in row J, sector 6, or whatever."
And then, of course, the person who's the guy doing the sonar on their side is over there, like, trying to
like cross-reference.
cross-reference that information to figure out which part of that is true. And it just gives them more information, because once you figure out where someone is, you can kind of math out where they are and what they're doing. Like, there's a ability in the game, one of the things that you can check off on, like Matt's role, where you can go like up to 4 spaces.
Yeah,
without
up to 4 spaces in a straight line.
Up to 4 spaces in a straight line.
I think you do have to announce it. I think you just have to say, like, we're using silence. Oh, not the direction.
Right.
Like, you have to say
you're using silence, but you don't say the direction. So
right, yeah,
there was a point where Dan King's crew had done silence and they had moved, and immediately after they had done silence, like, I'm like, they probably moved 4 spaces north just to try to get away from us. I'm like, let's fire a torpedo right where they would be. And Emerson was like, are you sure they could have gone less than that? And I'm like, they went 4. and we fired the torpedo, and it was like dead on. It was just like, so good. We went up right beside them and dropped a mine right beside our ship, and then blew up the mine. So it damaged us, but it hit them dead on. So we ended up winning the game. It was like, yes. It was just really exciting, just the way the game works. And overall, it's super simple. It's just like this weird, like, interesting, like, teamwork and deduction game as far as the sonar captain's job goes. But that's like the main thing of the game. So yeah, Captain Sonar, awesome game. Yeah. Matt, do you have a game that you want to talk about? I know you played several.
I'll talk about the game that you have just pretty much sworn off.
I don't know if you. I didn't know if you wanted to wait till Rob was here.
So we can
help defend that.
We can do that. I'll just mention it. We played Secret Hitler a couple of times. It was fun. If you ask Roy, it wasn't fun. It's fun for me. I had a great time. Man, what else did we play? I guess we can talk about Seven Ronin, right? Because Rob didn't play it.
Yeah, because I played the crap out of that.
So Roy demoed Seven Ronin pretty much all weekend. But I sat down and got a chance to play it against a guy. His name escapes me currently, and I feel bad because he listened to the show. But he had a really cute Pikachu plush that he got for his kid because his kid likes to throw things into the wall, and that wasn't going to push holes in the wall. But that game is really fun. It's only a 2-player game, which typically I'm not, like, real thrilled to just bust out because
you don't have that many situations that.
Yeah, and I feel like anytime I would want to, I'm just gonna be like, I don't know. I guess it just is too reminiscent of, like, chess or stuff for me, where I'm just like, this is gonna be boring. But this game, far opposite from that. It is it's an asymmetrical game where you either control one of the 7 Ronin, which are samurais trying to defend a village, or you control a whole horde of ninjas trying to take over the village, set very much in the Akira Kurosawa's, like, 7 Samurai sort of universe. It's real good. I unboxed my copy today and put all the components together, punched out all the cardboard. But it's really cool because each of the 7 Ronin have a different ability that do different things, except for one guy. He doesn't have an ability, but he's, like, really strong, got a ton of hit points.
Hit points is his ability. I love that. Like, every time I was demoing it, I would tell all the abilities for all the people, and then I'd save him for last. I'd be like, this guy's ability is a whole lot of hit points, and they chuckle. I don't know why, but it was just fun every single time I did that.
Yeah. Man, that game is really good. I played the ninja side of it. So essentially the way it works is I can place a number of ninjas based on sort of not a number of ninjas. I can place ninjas in a number of sectors based off what sort of turn it is in the game.
Yep.
And so the thing is, you're trying to figure out where you want to place your guys, because the ninjas, if they control a sector, will get sort of buffs or bonuses or something like that. And then the Ronin are trying to clearly, defend the ninjas, because if the ninjas control 5 sectors at the end of a turn, they win, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Or conversely, if all the Ronin die, the ninjas win. Or the Ronin will win if the game runs out of turns, which I believe is at like the end of 8 turns, right?
Yes.
7 or 8.
It's eight.
Or if you manage to kill all of the ninjas and the ninja party has like no ninjas left. Roy, you'd probably do a better job explaining it, but
I love that you're explaining it because I explained it so many times.
Yeah. But it's just a lot of fun. It's one of those things that is very much like, I thought for the first part of the game, I was like, man, I've got this in the bag. I knocked out a couple of Ronin real fast. There was one turn where I killed 3 of his Ronin like in one go, and I was like, dude, I got this. And then I noticed my ninja reserves was starting to run a little low, and then I had them in certain sectors that he wasn't necessarily contesting anymore. And I was like, oh, huh. How do I... okay. And I think it ended up coming down. It was turn 8.
Mm-hmm.
I had only one ninja to place. He had only one Ronin left, and I think he had 2 Ronin left. But they all were like very close to being dead. One of them was his healer. The other one was, I think, the little purple girl. I don't remember, but he had 2 of them left, and it ended up coming down. He defended, and his healer had 1 HP, and I happened to put my guy in the wrong location, so it wasn't on his healer, nor was it on the one sector of the map that would let me ping one of his Ronin for a damage, because I assumed he would block it. And then I ended up not being able to kill his Ronin, so the turn ended and he won entirely by like 1 HP point. If the game would have continued a turn longer, I would have won. But he won the war of attrition and just completely ended that there, and it was good. It came down to, I don't know, it was really close, and it was funny because even he was saying that, like, at the start of the game he was like, man, I'm way behind. I don't feel like I'm gonna win this. And then you get to like turn 5 or so, and then you're like, okay, yep, nope, totally got this in the bag. And so it's really interesting to see sort of that dynamic between them. Like, it's very asymmetrical, but it's also very balanced at the same time.
Yeah, I saw both sides win this game. Like, I demoed it tons and tons and tons of times. Like, I can't even count the number of times. Like, it was in the probably like 30 sometimes. I demoed it a lot. It's not that long of a game, so when you're on the convention floor for several hours, you can demo quite a few of it, especially when there's 2 tables and sometimes you're demoing both of those tables. But it's a lot of fun. Like, it's all about like trying to get into your opponent's head. Like, are they going to place it here? Are they going to place it there? Like, I know that's a really good power, so they're probably going to block it as the ninjas, but maybe they don't block it because they know that I know that they're going to block it, so I'm going to go somewhere else, but maybe they do block it because it's a good, like, it's all this, like, show game, like, the cup in front of you, is that the poison, or is it the cup, like this Princess Bride sort of thing almost, where you're, like, trying to figure out exactly where they're going. I love all the different abilities on the Ronin. It's cool to figure out how to, like, combo those and work together, because some guys want to be in spaces with ninjas, some guys don't want to be in spaces with ninjas, and it's all about trying to figure out how to maximize your characters and put them in the right place where there's not going to be the ninjas or there are going to be ninjas. And then also the ninjas trying to figure out how to sneak by and trigger the right abilities at the right time. Because the end game, it always comes down. Like, a lot of people get super worried being the Ronins. They're like, oh my gosh, my Ronins are dying off. And I'm like, this game is literally the last samurai. You will have one samurai at the end of this game, most likely, one or two.
And that guy will hold the village for you, and it'll be great.
That guy just has to hold on by like a thread. And if he can hold on by a thread, you'll win the game. And it always feels like super intense. It's all about like putting your Ronins around and trying to figure out where to soak up the damage. I sold tons of copies of that game just because the game itself is that good. Like, literally, I demoed the game, people were walking up to the line and buying it. Demoed the game, people walked up to the line and bought it. It was a lot of fun. And since I was in one place at the booth, like, a ton of people came by and, like, said, oh, man, I love the show. So I got to demo the game for people who, like, watch our shows. So that's pretty cool, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, 7 Ronin. If you're looking for a short 2-player asymmetrical game, it's awesome.
And the box is
not too big. It's pretty small.
Not real big. I think it would be like 2.5 One Night Ultimate Werewolf boxes, maybe. It's just kind of long. You can easily fit it in like a backpack.
It's about the same size as Codenames, basically.
Yeah. So pretty small box that you can kind of bring anywhere.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll talk a little bit about Gen Con type stuff. Did I actually put this on here? Yes. Show notes. What? So what did you think about the trip to Gen Con overall, Matt? Like, I thought the ride down was super interesting. It went super fast because I brought along my 4th edition books and had like a little short like one shot. I had a game day scenario from like back when they introduced Dark Sun to 4th edition, and I started running them through that, like sort of changed a little bit, but not exactly like it is, but just kind of messed around with that, and then we just kind of like ran with the scenario from there. What do you think about that part of the
it was a good. Had a decent amount of fun playing that. I mean, thankfully, I had already played some 4th edition, so I kind of knew what was going on. Otherwise, because Hector was like, what is this? And I'm like, okay, here, you use this, and it's that, and everything's fine.
And it was super interesting because we were playing 4th edition in a car without a map. And if you know anything about 4th edition, like 4th edition is the board game of or tactical miniatures game of role-playing games. So it's all about being in a map and how far away you are and what the burst is. So we just made all that stuff up. We just played it in our head. So
a highlight, we ran into a coliseum very blindly to rescue a political prisoner that we didn't even need to rescue anyway, who was I will say mentally inept is probably a good way to phrase it. And so we go in there to rescue him, and he's like, hey, thanks for coming, guys. And then like a megapede comes out. We're all level 4. We're like, oh, we're gonna die.
Basically, they snuck into the bottom of a coliseum where they were basically sending out these prisoners to get murdered in the middle of the coliseum. So they're sneaking around under the coliseum, and these gates start closing behind them. And as they're basically being slowly pushed out towards the middle, and they're like right on the edge of actually being like out into the Coliseum part, like where all the crowds, there's tons of crowds coming around to watch all the public executions. And this gate opens and this giant thing just starts crawling out after them. They're like, oh no. I was like, do you guys stay in the hallway? They're like, no, we get out of the hallway. So then they're out in the middle with all these other like prisoners and stuff. And Matt, do you want to tell them what happened? It was actually pretty awesome.
Like we had really no idea how to deal with this, and then we realized that like Hector's daily ability was like he had like an ability to suggest something to somebody if he hit them with an attack. So I was just like, I mean, this is the only chance we have here. Just like run at it. Stab it, and maybe we can suggest to it to like make a distraction or something, because like the walls were too high to jump out of, all the gates were closed. We were just like, this is gonna be rough. Hector runs up, stabs the thing, nat 20.
Yeah, it's like super
good.
Nat 20 is like whatever the character PCs are saying, that's what we do, because they got a nat 20. Like they get to do it, whatever they want to do.
And then we came up with the idea, let's just hop on the back of the thing and ride it out of the Coliseum.
Yep.
So we all get on the back of the thing and ride it like into the crowd, and then of course it makes its saving throw and passes it. So we were like, oh great, neat.
Time to get
So
off.
let's get
Time to get
off.
off.
So we get off the thing and it's just terrorizing the city for who knows how long. And that was really cool. The dealing with the idiot we rescued, a little less cool, but it's fine. Oh man.
Man, it was a lot of fun when we started just like freelancing like all the stuff, just doing whatever. Because basically the thing ends when you guys go back to the city and give things back. But I just started making it up from there, and it worked out pretty good. I think that's
Yeah.
like the best way to DM a role playing game, is just to play it on the fly and make interesting stories together with the characters. So, but yeah, Dungeons and Dragons. That's a pretty good car ride. I think the trip overall was awesome. Super tiring, but Gen Con always is.
Yeah.
We got to see so many awesome people, like hung out a ton with Emerson. Like we went to lunch with him and Steve Avery, and we played games with him at the Secret Cabal meetup. And then we met up with him and played Captain Sonar. So like it was tons of fun hanging out with those guys. And like a whole bunch of his like play group was there, so we got to hang out with and like meet those guys too. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, and then just seeing like our friend Brandon, like we got to hang out with Brandon all week and just getting to know him more and having a blast with all that stuff was a ton of fun. Walking around the convention hall, trying to not get too lost. There's like some crazy stuff in that convention hall, man. There was a point where like me and Brandon were walking by and there's like just this like furry card game, and we're just like, what is that? Why are there so many people in that booth? Look the other way and run. Like we're like, avert your eyes. Like what is going on? Like it's crazy, like the stuff that they have at Gen Con. Like it brings all kinds. That's all I gotta say.
I was gonna say I always felt really weird because there was like a booth that was like super anime, like kind of in the middle of where I was continually walking around, and it was I think it was like a Tante Koro card game or something. I don't really know,
Yeah.
but it was there, and I kept walking by, and they hire all of these girls that are like in maid outfits, and they're just like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm just like, "I don't want any part of this."
Run away.
I was like, "I appreciate the conversation, but no, thank you."
Nice.
Um,
But yeah, we
But
got to meet up and see some of our friends from Plaid Hat. Got to hang out with Isaac. Got to talk to Jerry for a little bit. Got to hang out with the guys from Gambling Games, or at least say hi to them. Like, dude,
Yeah.
Nate is like the hypest dude we know. Like,
for
he
sure.
is so awesome. I was like, hey man, want one of our Epic Gaming Night dice? And he's like, hey man, want a dice for every game we've ever made? And I'm just like, what? What the crap? So it was a lot of fun just seeing people that we get to interview and talk to, just seeing them in real life and being able to converse with them, give them high fives, and be like, we're all here because we love board games and we're trying to do awesome things in this industry. So all that was a ton of fun. So what would you say, if you had to pick a game, was the game of the con for you?
Man. So I don't know if I can narrow it down to one.
Would it be that game y'all stayed up till 4 in the morning playing?
Probably, because it's either that or a game that's very similar to it. But so for me, it's probably either Goku Ku, a Haba game about making a nest for birds' eggs, or Junk Art.
Yeah.
Both of them are very much dexterity building games. And both were incredibly fun. I demoed Junk Art a couple of times just because it was so much fun, and I didn't
Did you
want to
do
like
the giant
bust.
one?
Yeah, and I didn't want to like bust Rob's copy open while he wasn't there and be like, "I'm playing this right now." But so I went by the Pretzel Games booth a couple of times and demoed it. And then me and Rob demoed it, I think the very last time, and it was a lot of fun. And not Pretzel Games, Goku Ku, the Haba game. The game, $20, comes in its own little self-contained tin. We started playing Blood Rage one night in the kind of offshoot of the convention hall that's open for free play and tournaments and stuff. And so we were in there. We played it until probably I don't know, what would you say, like 11:30, 12 o'clock or something like that? Because then you were like, I need to go to sleep because I got stuff to do.
I had to work. I
Um,
had like a job at Gen
yeah.
Con.
So so we left after that, or no, Roy left, and then we started playing Goku, and we played Goku until like 3:30. Like we got back to the hotel room at like almost 4, and we were like, "Man, that game's fun. I'm tired.
Yeah.
See you in the morning." But man, that was
I ended up getting to play it at the Seer Cabal meetup, like the
yeah,
next day, and it was funny because this guy taught us how to play. It was a completely different copy. Taught me how to play with a couple of my other friends, and then Rob comes in and is like, "Oh, you guys are playing this game? I love this game. This game's great." And then Rob's like watching us play, and he's like, "You guys have none of the rules right. None of them are right at all." So Rob like had to correct everybody on all the rules and like what they're doing wrong, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that is the rules. That's what the rule book says. The rule book, it's a Haba game, so like the rule book's like tiny. There's like barely
yeah,
any rules." But I guess they were taught by someone at the Haba booth, and they taught them like just. They're like, "Oh yeah, you just pull out sticks and build a nest and put some eggs in it." Like it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
like the color coded thing wasn't they weren't doing properly, and it was kind of interesting. But yeah, that game seems super fun. Like the way that the nest gets built and the way it looks afterwards is like really awesome. You know, I always had to
Yeah.
put like what's the bird's name? Mr. Cuckoo.
I don't remember. It is something like that. It's like Carrie Cuckoo or whatever, but it's like
That's awesome.
just some like crazy looking bird that you feel like weighs a pound when you're about to put it down in the nest. You're like, man, this thing's happy.
Yeah, because to win the game, you have to have all of your eggs put into the nest and then put this heavy bird on top. I'm sure when Rob gets on the show and talks about it, he's going to be super hype about that game.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to actually play it more with like the actual rules. So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the game of the con for me was definitely just playing Captain Somar. I had so much fun playing that, and Emerson's OP-ness with the sonar and captaining around. Just the fact of when we're like, okay, now we chase them down, and we just like went across the map so fast that their sonar person couldn't keep up with what we were doing, so he like got all off track. So he was asking all sorts of crazy questions because they didn't know where we were. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, south. And you're like, check, check, south, check, check, south, check, check, east, check, check, east, check, check. It's like, okay, surface. Okay, let's go east some more. It was just like, it was a lot of fun.
The do you wanna do like a runner up game since I mentioned two? Or
I don't know,
I wasn't
man.
sure if you had anything.
For me, the game of the con was Seven Ronin because I played Seven Ronin. I mean, I loved it. Like, I played that game so many times, and like,
Yeah.
I still like it after playing it that many times. That just shows how good of a game it was.
Yeah.
I know that Gray Fox got it from, I guess, overseas or something like that. So it wasn't a game that they designed in house, but it is a solid game. And it's awesome. Like, it's a little bit different of a theme than like you see on some other games. It's cool to have the like samurai ninja theme. It's just like solid. Like, it's perfect. Like, the theme perfectly matches the game, and there's a lot of cool deduction in it. So Seven Ronin, if you're looking for a 2-player game, do it.
Yeah.
Every time I talk about it, I feel like I'm advertising it because that's what I did for like
Yeah.
hours. I advertised that game for hours, and it was easy to do because it's an easy game to sell. So a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do we have any crazy stories about our trip that we want to talk about? I know so much crazy stuff happened. It was a lot of fun.
Eh.
I want to tell my Rob story, or my
Okey-doke.
getting games from Rob story. So on Friday was like my free day when I was gonna have like a full free day to do whatever. So I slept in a little bit, got up a little bit late. Rob and Hector had already left. Hector was gonna go try to get a game for Rob. All he needed left was the last Friday, the game that Rob and Matt designed. No, they didn't design it, but the game that they were thinking about designing, one that was similar. They really wanted to play that, and Rob wanted to get a copy. And apparently they were only selling like 24 copies a day because they didn't have that many. So the first day it sold out immediately. Hector couldn't even get to the booth in time for it to sell out. So he was going to try to go back and get it the next day for Rob. So I'm like, okay, I'm good at pushing my way through crowds. My goal is I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to try to meet Hector. Hector's been down there for like an hour. I'm going to get to where Hector is and be like, I got here and I left the room an hour later than you. For some reason, that was my mindset, which seems kind of weird. But I was like, I'm going to go hang out with Hector right now. And so I'm going down there, and like the crowds are intense because this is like, it's like 9, or it's like getting close to 9. It's like right before 9, like 8:55. And the crowds are pretty heavy because the hall's about to open on the second day of the convention. And so I'm getting my way up, and I'm almost to the I knew Hector would be at the place right beside the Ares booth to try to get the game. So I'm like, okay, I got to get over there. There's like one more gate, and then it's the gate where he's at. And so I'm at this gate, and they open the doors, and like all these people start flooding in. And I'm looking around at all the people, and they all have exhibitors badges on. And I'm like, I have an exhibitor's badge. I'm pretty sure I can just go in right here. And I'm like, what the crap? So they're just like letting all the exhibitors in to do all their stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I just went with the crowd and went right into the thing. I was like, I got my exhibitor's badge. I'm exhibitor. I'm freaking demoing for this company. So I was in there, and then I'm like, okay, do I go out the door over there to go hang out with Hector? And I'm like, oh, Hector, I'm like going to come over. I'm like inside. Like I'm going to come over and hang out with you. I'm like, wait. Maybe I should just buy the game that he wants. So I went over to the Ares booth, and there's a couple guys standing around, like, waiting, because they only have a few copies of this game. And I'm like, oh, man, what do I do? And so I'm like, I don't know if they're actually going to be selling it before the door opens. Maybe I'll just wait at the front of the line. I'm going to wait here for an hour for this game. That's going to be ridiculous, but okay. So they just start selling the games to the people in there, which is what they do, like for early access people, because you can get a VIG badge to get early access like every day, and all of the exhibitors are in there just swapping games with each other, like, hey man, I got this game, you want to trade for that game? Like they're like playing like trading card games with these board games in there. It's pretty crazy. So they like just let you buy the game. So I ended up being like, Hector, man, I'm in here. Should I just buy this? He's like, dude, man, do it. So I got the game, and then I went over and like waited, hung out with Emerson, hung out with some of the guys from the Dice Tower, talked to Jerry, all this stuff like before the hall was even open. So it was awesome, like chill time inside the exhibition hall. So if you want to get in the exhibition hall, demo for a awesome game company. And depending on your schedule, you might be able to get in early one day. But that was a ton of fun. So I got the game that Rob really wanted, and Hector didn't have to like try to fight people for it when there's only like 20 something copies, and he got to come over and hang out with me while I demoed the Arkham Horror Living card game. So that was my crazy story, because I was just shocked that I was just like pushed into the hall basically, just because where I was at the time and the doors opened. I was just whooshed into the hall. I'm like, well, I'm in the hall now. Now what do I do? So that was awesome. Do you have anything that comes to the top of your mind?
Not that's like podcast safe. Some stuff happened. We'll put it that way. Some weird stuff happened.
How did your Critical Role thing go? Because I don't think I talked to you about
man,
that.
That was.
I know crazy stories. Probably just trying to get into that place, because we were walking to the Secret Cabal meetup, and there was just a huge line of people. And I'm like, I wonder if that's the thing that Matt's going to. I'm pretty sure that was the thing you were going to.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I showed up. I was like kind of grumpy because I was trying to print my ticket out at the hotel, and it wasn't like printing the full page. And like clearly printed on the ticket, it says present this full page in order to get in. And I was like, man, I paid $60 for this ticket, and they're not going to let me in. And I was just getting like real salty. So I get to the place. I see that the line is pretty much like almost literally around the block.
It was.
Which was insane. But I think the venue seated like 1,500. And I think we had, I know, over 1,000. I don't know what the exact number was, but that thing was pretty full. And so I was like, okie doke, cool, whatever. I'll just see if it'll work. It's got the barcode, it's fine. So I'm walking around. I'm just trying to see if there's any other place that I maybe can, print the ticket out or something like that. And I don't find anything, so I'm just like, whatever. I'll just, I guess, just go look at like for a convenience store, because I was getting pretty thirsty from walking around a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I find a little shop that sells like some ice cream and stuff, and I'd wanted ice cream pretty much all week. So I go in, Go in, get 2 scoops of orange sherbet and a waffle cone. An odd combination, but it worked out real well. Um, and then got 2 bottles of water, and then went and got in line. And was just sitting there, just licking my ice cream cone, having a good time, talking to people in line. They were a little sad that I had ice cream, and then we get up there and they just scan my thing, it beeps, they let me in. I was like, cool, and I was like, do I have to throw away my ice cream cone? They're like, no, and I was like, yes, this is amazing. So I'm just sitting in a chair eating an ice cream cone, like yeah. But it was really really good. I mean, it's something that's really strange about just being in a place where like you have a bunch of people who are like very excited about the thing that's going on,
Yeah, yeah.
or they have like some sort of emotional investment. Like if you've ever been to any sort of like, I don't know. The only thing I can compare it to is when I used to go to the International in Seattle, and like the crowd in there is like just electric. But like being in there was something entirely different because everybody was just like so hype, and you're just sitting there and you're just like, man, this feels like super awesome.
Explain what
But
Critical Role is for people who don't know what
so
exactly that
Critical
is.
Role is a um, Dungeons and Dragons game that is in fifth ed that is DM'd by Matt Mercer, a well-known voice actor.
Hmm.
Um, Most people would probably know him as like he's done a bunch of stuff for anime, but like more recently he voices McCree from Overwatch. Um, but so he's the DM, and then every other player that is in that game are also professional voice actors. So it's like a really an oddly high quality production
Yeah.
level.
Do they all
Um,
voice act their characters basically?
yeah, yeah, and it's done by Geek and Sundry, so you know it's got a pretty high quality production level on it anyway, and it's just a D and D game where the people who were playing aren't necessarily like the nerdiest of nerds. Like it's not something that's gonna be like I guess it's not going to be so rules focused. It's going to be a bit
Right.
more free flowy and stuff. And then all the people who are running characters are like big sort of improv people or theater fans or that sort of stuff. So you end up with just a very interesting and sort of like a emotionally invested story. Even though I don't know, it's really good. The best thing I can say is I became super into the show when I was watching. There was one episode of it. They were about to fight a beholder that was inside of like a pyramid that was like flat topped that had like a glass thing over it so that you could. It had like a stone in it that it was holding up. And what they did, they were like, how do we surprise this thing? So they had like a big giant friend. It wasn't really a friend. It was like one of those like uh I don't know, evil giant that they had charmed their way
Charmed.
into, yeah, into having them come along with. So they polymorph him into a mouse and then fly him up like 100 feet in the air on like a magic carpet, and then they just drop the mouse off the side of the carpet, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. The mouse falls, and then they just release the polymorph, and then this giant just comes crashing down through the building and like destroys everything, and everybody's like, what's going on? And they just jump in through the top, and I was just like, okay, I'm in love with this. This is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
This is insane. Um, but so yeah, went saw that. It was a good time. That's pretty much all I got to say. It's just a really good time. Had a lot of fun.
Sounds awesome. I've listened to a lot of the Penny Arcade Acquisitions Incorporated D&D stuff,
Yeah.
so I haven't listened to like too many other people playing D&D, but it's
How is their stuff? Because
I
I've
like
never
it a
actually.
lot. Like they have like their characters and they always play the same characters, which is kind of cool.
Mhm.
Because like you get to like they act sort of like their own selves a little bit, but it makes
Yeah,
it
yeah,
funny just because like the way that they act in the game and like they always bring up stuff like from old games that happen, like oh my gosh, I can't believe you let that happen to me and all that stuff. It's always very interesting. I love like I wish I was a better DM. Like I wish I could be just like more like freestyle and just do everything. But it's all
yeah,
D&D works the best when like the DMs are rewarding the creativity of the players and like trying to build the story together. Like if the
yeah,
players come up with some crazy idea like and they can like make it happen, like it's just going to make the story that much better. And that's what D&D is all about, is like creating a story and an awesome narrative that will be entertaining for everyone involved. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be all about like, well, you don't have a +1 on that because they have combat advantage on you right now. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's that was why I liked our card game, because even though it was fourth ed, it was still very like I don't know, it just flowed very well. It wasn't like there wasn't so many floating point modifiers that we were concerned with or worried about. It was just kind of roll, add, did we hit, did we not hit, you know.
And
Very
a lot of times I'd be like, well, you're here and he's there, so I mean, you get a +2 to that. That's fine. That's cool.
Yeah. It was good.
You totally got combat advantage on him. You're standing on both sides of him, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's good.
Awesome. But yeah, that's our Dungeons and Dragons podcast. But this game's sometimes about tabletop games, but mostly board games.
Tune in next week for our conversation about Greece.
Rob's not here.
That's fine. We'll talk about the Brexit or whatever current news item is.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and try to start to wrap this up. But the one thing I want to say is thank you so much to everybody that stopped by and said hey to us at Gen Con. It was like overwhelming the amount of people that came by and said, hey, I know you from Board Game Breakfast or Board Game Blender, but even better, like the people that are like, oh man, I listened to the podcast, like how's Matt and Rob doing? Like I had dice that I was handing out to everybody, and it was just awesome to meet a whole bunch of people that check out all of our media, and like people would come and be like, man, I love your Instagram, man, I love you guys on social media, man, I love the videos you guys do. It was just awesome to be able to see the people that we're making this content for, because like on the internet most of the time, like I mean sometimes you'll have people comment on your stuff and things like that, but you just like put yourself out there, and we're like creating things and putting ourselves out there, and it's like, is it actually going anywhere? But it's really awesome to see all these people that enjoy our stuff, have like-mindedness to us, and are just a lot of fun to hang out with. So thanks everybody who said hi at Gen Con, and hopefully we'll see more of you guys next time. Anybody who missed us, I'm sorry. That convention is crazy. Like literally, when you're hanging out with your friends, it's hard to stay with them. And you're texting each other constantly. So like all the people that we missed and we didn't get to see, and I didn't get to give dice to, or like business cards, or didn't get to do high fives or take pictures with or anything like that. Hopefully we'll see you guys next time, and we'll let you know when we're doing other stuff. So
yeah, I want to say sorry, because I know there were some people that found Rob that were like, hey, where's Matt at? And Rob's like, I have no idea.
It's really hard because Matt was literally like freelance, like he could just go wherever he wanted. He didn't have a place he was stuck at. Like Rob, we could go to the Ashes tournament, he was stuck there. I was stuck at the booth, so at Gray Fox, so people could find me. Matt was just out in the wilds.
And you know, it's not like I get on Twitter and I'm like, hey guys, hanging out over here, you know. So I know I heard there were some people who were looking for me who probably didn't find me, and my bad.
I think a bunch of people said they just wanted to come to you and be like, yeah.
It's fine.
Really all they wanted to say.
It works for me.
Awesome, guys. Well, next time I think we're going to do like a scavenger hunt and be like, if you find Roy, you get this. And if you find Matt, you get this. And if you find Rob, you get this. But if you find all three, then... oh my gosh, you unlock this special surprise or some junk like that. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. And then someone will find all three of us like all together, and it won't be the same. It'll be better if we're like part. No, it doesn't count because we're all together. You have to find us when we're on completely opposite sides of the entire convention, like we were most of the time. But yeah, tons of fun. Gen Con was amazing. Thanks everybody that listens to this podcast. You guys are great. We stream these on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to check us out on Instagram and Twitter. Follow us there. We're posting all sorts of stuff. We posted tons of pictures of all these awesome Gen Con games. So make sure to check out our Instagram right now. Our friend Hector helped me out a lot with that too. So he just went around taking pictures of everything. So feel free to hit us up on that. Ask us questions about the games. We can talk and chat back and forth about all that stuff. And make sure to check out analoggamer.com/Epic Gaming Night. You can find our awesome Epic Gaming Night shirts there and 4X ones. And I'm currently wearing my glow-in-the-dark Epic Gaming Night shirt, which actually turned out super amazing. Like, Brandon is literally the best. But yeah, make sure to check that stuff out and hit us up on everything else. follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We already talked about that. But also subscribe to us on YouTube and hit us up with iTunes reviews. And we'll pretty much see you guys next time. Do you have anything to say to the people as we sign out here, Matt?
Nah, man. It's have a good day, I guess.
Yeah, man.
Or night. Or have a good whenever you're watching this.
Stay chill.
Or the colloquial, have a good one, and you can fill in that one to be whatever you'd like it to mean, whether it be day, life, week, tomorrow,
Peace.
Tuesday, hour.
It ended a while ago, but
That's fine.
Awesome.
I was just like, I'll just do that thing that Rob does, where we just try to fill it with a bunch of useless nonsense until you're like, it's over. Stop.
The Cotton Show said, "Hey guys, stoked about your Post Gencon show. I couldn't go. My wife said she's on board for next year, though."
That's good.
And I typed back hype. This doesn't have a timestamp on here, so I don't know. I wasn't like staring at the stream, so they were still watching. Hi. If not, I'm sorry. But yeah, awesome guys. Well, I guess we're pretty much gonna get off of here. Thanks so much for checking us out. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe for all of our amazing podcast content, if that's what you want to call it. Self-deprivation. Peace.
Ooh.